So when a person puts it in the mind to assassinate a major leader, sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. Like last week, the gentleman in question missed his target, struck him in the ear. But today we're going to be talking about probably one of the most unique U.S. assassination attempt of a president, where a former member of, or what do you say, still a member of the Manson family, tried to kill Gerald Ford and basically failed. Now, on September 5th, 1975, Lynette Squeaky Fromme, a member of the Manson family cult, attempted to assassinate U.S. President Gerald Ford in Sacramento, California. Fromme was standing a little more than an arm's length from Ford, pointing a M1911 pistol into public grounds of the California State Capitol building, and without chambering a round in the gun, unsuccessfully attempted to fire. Now, after the attempt, he continued to walk to the California State House, where he met with Governor Jerry Brown. For her crime, Fromme spent 14 years in prison and was released on August 14, 2009, 2 years after and 7 months after Ford's death. So the incident with Fromme was kind of weird because it was an assassination attempt that should be very simple. He could easily have been knocked off by anybody. Now, it said for the crime, she spent 34 years in prison and was released on August 14, 2009, 2 years and 7 months after Ford's death. Now, the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum in Grand Rapids, Michigan, later received a pistol used in the assassination attempt as a gift, and the gun was put on a display. Now, the Fromme, nicknamed Squeaky by George Spahn of the deranged, was a follower of occultist Charles Manson, leader of the group convicted of murdering actress Sharon Tate and 8 others in L.A., California in '69. Fromme was one of the earliest followers of Manson and had a reputation of being one of the most devoted. Through the years, Fromme assumed a leadership role in keeping Manson cult members in communication with each other after most of them had been imprisoned. In April '71, she served 90 days in jail for attempting to feed a hamburger laced with the psychedelic drug LSD to Barbara Hoyt, a witness to the Tate murder, to keep Hoyt from testifying in a murder trial. She lived in Sacramento in an attic apartment with Sandra Good, a close friend who was also a longtime member of the Manson family. Now, 4 years later, in '75, Fromme wanted to contact President Ford on environmental pollution his campaign brought forth and its effects on Atwa, air, trees, water, and animals. Now, in July '75, California's relatively new governor, Democrat Jerry Brown, refused to commit to speak at the 49th annual Sacramento Host Breakfast, an annual gathering of wealthy California business leaders to be held in the Sacramento Convention Center on the morning of September 5th, '75. To teach Brown a political lesson for what he would describe more than 30 years later as a dilatory response invitation, the politically powerful group invited U.S. President Ford, a Republican, to make the September 5th, '75 morning speech instead. Ford saw California's electoral votes as critical to his success in the '76 U.S. presidential election and accepted the invitation to speak at the host breakfast. See, prior to Fromme showing up and trying to knock off somebody, she was all kind of mischiefs, hanging out with the Aryan Brotherhood, all kind of involvement in possible murders. Now, there was a murder that occurred in November '72 involving James and Laura Willett, and there was no evidence against Fromme, and she was released for lack of evidence. Now, the situation with Fromme, she later told reporters she had been traveling to California, trying to visit brothers in jail and visit Manson, and after leaving Stockton and the incident she might have been involved with, she moved to a Sacramento apartment with Sandra Good. The two wore robes on occasion and changed her name to symbolize their devotion to Manson's new religion. Fromme becoming red in honor of her red hair, and her California redwoods, and Good becoming blue for her blue eyes in the ocean. Both nicknames were originally given to them by Manson. So here we have Squeaky Fromme, an environmental crusader now, and still following Manson's edict, even in jail. Earliest August '75, the New York Times reported that the United States Environmental Protection Agency had released a study called A Spectroscopic Study of California Smog, showing that smog was widespread in rural areas. The New York Times article also noted how Ford had just asked the United States Congress to relax provisions on the 63 Clean Air Act beyond the 70 Clean Air Act amendments and provided details on Ford's upcoming September trip to California. After learning of Ford's upcoming visit, ex-convict Thomas Elbert was arrested on August 18th in response to Elbert phoning the United States Secret Service and threatening to kill Ford when he visited Sacramento. At about the same time, Fromme came to believe that California's giant coastal redwoods, the tallest trees in the world, were in danger of falling because of automobile smog reaching their rural location. Feeling personally responsible for the fate of the redwoods, Fromme traveled to San Francisco to meet with a San Francisco government official to save the trees from pollution. After return from San Fran, she watched a news report from her P Street apartment and learned some details of Ford's plans to visit Sacramento. The hotel Ford would be staying at, the Senator Hotel, was located a little more than a mile, about 50 minutes walking distance from Fromme's Sacramento apartment. At this point, Fromme decided to bring attention to the trees by putting fear into the government through killing and symbol President Ford. Fromme said that her decision was rooted in her desire to get life, not just my life, but clean air, healthy water, and respect for creatures in creation. Again, very fuzzy because she might have been working on instructions by Manson and used this as a front. Now, the pistol, produced 64 years earlier in 1911 by Colt, was manufactured the same year that his model pistol became the standard-issued sidearm for the U.S. Armed Forces. After its manufacture in 1911, Fromme's pistol was sent to Rock Island Arsenal in Illinois. It has a serial number of 948454. The pistol was used in the U.S. Army and later sold as government surplus in 1913. Although the pistol used 45 ACP ammunition, not to be confused with 45 Colt, at the time of the assassination attempt, the pistol was not considered a common crime gun because it's rather large and not easily concealed. Now, Harold Zeke Manny Borrow, born 1909, was a retired federal government engineering draftsman who, at ages 65 to 66, hung around the Manson family and supplied them with money as their sugar daddy. Borrow met Fromme in the spring of 74 while in Sacramento Park. Fromme would visit Borrow at his apartment in Sacramento. In return for her friendship, Borrow loaned his Cadillac to Fromme and later bought a red 73 Volkswagen for her after she wrecked his Cadillac. On July 12, 75, Borrow moved from Sacramento to Jackson, California at the end of Lawton Lane. While at his apartment in Jackson, Fromme asked Borrow for a gun. Fromme told Borrow that she needed one in her apartment house where she lived with two roommates for protection from Manson's enemies. Borrow had the pistol along with a half box of ammunition containing 25 rounds and showed Fromme how to pull the hammer back and fire the pistol. Borrow also had a pistol catalog in his apartment and allowed her to look through it to select a different pistol for Borrow to buy for Fromme. After that, Fromme walked out with the M1911 ammunition and magazine, despite Borrow's protests that she should not take the pistol and other items. Now, the day before the assassination, September 4th, Ford was in Washington. In the morning, he met with NSA advisor and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, a meeting that was still under national security restriction as of 2012. After the meeting, Ford flew the Spirit of 76 from Andrews to Boeing Field in Seattle, to attend a Republican Party fundraising convention, toured the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and attended a conference on domestic and economic affairs. Now, at about 5 p.m., he flew to Portland, Oregon, when he attended a Republican fundraising event, attended a Portland Youth Bicentennial rally with about 13,000 children, and received an Oregon blanket gift. At 9:30 p.m., he flew to McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento and went to his suite at 11:30 p.m. at the Senator. Now, on the morning of September 5th, Fromme, dressed completely in red for the animals and earth colors, placed the Colt .45 pistol in a leg holster strapped to her left leg, and made her way from her apartment to the California State Capitol grounds. At 9:26, Ford had returned to the Senator Hotel from his 2-hour speaking engagement at the host breakfast. From his suite at the Senator Hotel, Ford crossed L, also known as Lincoln Highway, at 10:02 a.m. into Capitol Park and began shaking hands with people who had gathered at a crowd in the park's pathway. Ford was making his way towards an entrance of the state Capitol building. Now, Ford had moved about 150 feet from Lincoln Street along a Capitol Park paved walkway, saw a woman in a brightly colored dress, and stopped approximately halfway to the state capitol. People on either side of Ford wanted to shake his hand with him, and Ford assumed that a woman in red wanted to shake hands for a talk. 26-year-old Fromme was positioned 2 feet from Ford behind the first row of the crowd and reached in her robe, drawing the Colt .45 pistol from her leg holster. She raised her hand toward Ford, through the front of the row of people, and pointed the gun at a height between Ford's knees and his waist. From Ford's perspective, he noted, "As I stopped, I saw a hand come through the crowd in the first row, and that was the first active gesture that I saw, but in the hand there was a gun." Now, the pistol contained ammunition stored in a detachable magazine in the pistol's grip, but the gun did not include a round in the gun's chamber. At the time, Fromme was not aware that she needed to pull back the gun slide to insert a cartridge in the pistol's chamber. 5 years later, in 1980, from federal prison camp Alderson, Fromme claimed that she purposely injected the top round for the pistol magazine onto the floor of a P Street apartment because she was not determined to kill the guy. While Fromme pointed the gun at Ford, several people heard a metallic click sound. As she shouted, "It wouldn't go off." Secret Service agent Larry Buendorf grabbed the gun, forced it in Fromme's hand, and brought her to the ground. On the ground, Fromme said, "It didn't go off. Can you believe it? It didn't go off." One of the Secret Service agents shouted, "Get down, let's go." Secret Service agents then half-dragged Ford away from Fromme towards the east entrance of the Capitol until Ford yelled, "Put me down, put me down." Ford continued his walk to the California State House, entered and met with California Governor Jerry Brown at 10:06 for 30 minutes without mentioning the assassination attempt until they were through talking business. Ford, who later indicated that he was not scared, concluded, "I thought I better get on with my day's schedule." Now, following the attempt, the Secret Service would not allow reporters or photographers near the president during his next trip to California. On September 20th, 1975, U.S. federal judge Thomas J. McBride set November 4th, 1975 for the start of a trial against Fromme for attempting to assassinate a U.S. president. 3 days before the trial began, Ford gave a videotaped testimony for the White House as a defense witness in the trial of Fromme. The testimony was the first time a U.S. president testified at a criminal trial. Now, on November 4th, the prosecutors were ready to present about 1,000 items of evidence seized from Fromme's car, an apartment just after the assassination attempt, including a .45 caliber ammunition in the box she took for borrow in the book The Modern Handgun. During the trial, she refused to cooperate, going so far as to throw an apple at prosecuting U.S. Attorney Duane Keyes after he urged that Fromme's punishment be severe because she had shown herself to be full of hate and violence. Now, when the trial ended on November 19th, Fromme was convicted of attempting to assassinate Ford. She received a life sentence. During her time in prison, she escaped, and as a result, received extra time in her sentence after her capture 2 days later. She escaped on Christmas Eve and was caught on Boxing Day. Missed the sales in 1987. Now, Betty Ford revealed in a 2004 interview on Larry King Live that following an attempt on her husband's life by Fromme, each time he left the White House, she would pray for his safety on one of the White House's balconies. The Sacramento assassination attempt was the first assassination attempt against Ford during his presidency. Later, on September 22nd, 1975, 17 days after Fromme attempted to kill Ford in Sacramento, Sarah Jane Moore, a political radical, attempted to kill Ford in San Fran. The second assassination attempt also failed, and 2 days later, California Governor Jerry Brown responded to both assassination attempts on Ford's life in Cali by signing into law bills imposing mandatory sentences for persons convicted of using guns and committing serious crimes, and required purchases of guns to wait 15 days for delivery. Ford went on to complete his presidency without further assassination attempts. Now, in 1981, the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum was dedicated in Ford's hometown of Grand Rapids. On August 23, 1989, the Office of the U.S. State Attorney in Sacramento donated Fromme's pistol to the museum, and of course, Ford died of natural causes on December 26, 2006. Now, Fromme was released from prison on August 14, 2009, 2 years and 8 months after Ford's death. She moved to Marcy, New York, to live in a house that looks like an old metal Quonset hut from the World War II era, where Robert Valder, another convict who had killed his brother-in-law, was released from prison in 1992. Now, it occurred around 10:05 Pacific Daylight Time, and he basically arrived back at the White House later on that day and watched news coverage of his assassination on the White House second floor that evening. So, a strange turn of events, because Squeaky Fromme, again, she Did she directly involved in the murders, the Tate LaBianca murders? Yes, because she was part of the family. She should have been in jail before. But the thing is, on Squeaky Fromme, she was basically a radical schizophrenic or schizoaffective, and basically, did she mean to kill them, or did basically, just say Charlie put a spin on them? I really don't know if there's any published reports how long she kept in contact with Charles Manson and the other followers through the years while in prison or without. That's not my expertise. All I know, 2 assassination attempts in just a couple of weeks apart. It's freaky, man. Like, the U.S. is nothing but weird assassination attempts, sometimes successful. Like what happened last week, if the guy would have taken more time, like other snipers, who knows? I mean, crazier things have happened. But like I said, violence is no good in any shape or form. But put it this way, in Canada, political assassinations since Confederation, 1. It's countless how many political assassinations we've had in the States, even for people that weren't yet candidates yet, like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and everybody else. So that's the story of Squeaky Fromme. When I was a kid, I said, Dad, how did this lady been kept out of jail? He said, well, she probably had somebody outside helping her. Where did her money come from? Was she bankrolled? I mean, But that was the thing back then. Nice-looking hippie girls, and they tend to get involved in crazy stuff. Different era altogether. It's almost 50 years, too, since the assassination. Time flies when you're not having fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here with a historical podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.